This is an advertisement by BetterHelp. January arrives with a sense of expectation and change. But real change is rarely loud or dramatic.
It's noticing what no longer needs to be there. Thoughts you keep turning over even when they're not helping.
And when you live with those long enough, they can start to feel normal until you pause and see them more clearly. That's where perspective helps. Not fixing yourself, just creating space to understand what's been weighing you down.
Therapy can offer that space, a clearer view of your own patterns and what's worth holding on to. BetterHelp makes starting straightforward. You answer a few questions and they match you with a qualified therapist. If it doesn't feel right, you can switch at any time.
Whether you're into New Year's resolutions or not, working to better yourself is something everyone should do. And you don't even need to bulldoze your life to do it. Simply use BetterHelp.
BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/restishistory. That's betterhelp.com/restishistory.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Car shopping shouldn't feel like preparing for a marathon of paperwork. That's why Carvana makes buying and financing your car easy. From start to finish, search thousands of vehicles with great prices. All online, all on your time. And when you're ready, your new car shows up right at your door. It doesn't get better than that. Buy your car the easy way. On Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
Hello, welcome to The Rest is History, 12 Days of Christmas special. And Dominic, today it's the 2nd of January.
Yes.
Did anything important happen on the 2nd of January? And if it did, is it perhaps Spanish-themed?
It is Spanish-themed, yes. So it's a huge event in world history, Tom. It's the Reconquest of Grenada. So you've been to Grenada, I assume? You
I have, yeah.
The Alhambra?
Several times, yeah.
It's a magnificent palace, for those people who don't know, on the rock overlooking the city. This great sort of ornament of Islamic Spain. And so what's called the Reconquista has been going on for centuries, effectively, the Christian reconquest of Spain. Now, that in itself is quite a loaded term, and one I think that a lot of historians would be a little bit suspicious of now, don't you? Because, I mean, they would argue that it's not a kind of reconquest so much as the creation of something that hadn't previously existed.
I think it is a reconquest as well.
Do you think it's a reconquest?
It's a reconquest by Christian rulers of lands that had previously been Christian. I think that's don't really have a problem with calling. But
that seems to, you see, what I don't like about that is that seems to imply that the Islamic sort of societies that had been there were intruders, newcomers, whereas they've been there for centuries. I mean, to use the example that I used in yesterday's podcast, they have been there for far longer than the United States has existed.
Yeah, of course, I'm not denying that, but I think that the Reconquista is obviously a Spanish word coined by the Spanish Christians who themselves, and I think it adequately reflects how they understood the process.
It does, but you don't think it's loaded? You don't think it's very loaded?
Well, I think there's a kind of desire on the part of people to see pre-Reconquista Spain as some multicultural paradise, and I think that was really, really bred of the tensions in the first decade of the 21st century. There was a real desire to say, there was a time where Muslims and Christians and Jews all got on really well, and they all sat around eating oranges and
bubbling
talking
fountains.
about Aristotle, bubbling fountains, all this kind of stuff. Yes, and so the word Reconquista seemed problematic in that context. But I think that's a fantasy. Islamic rule was incredibly brutal. Christian rule was incredibly brutal. The process was about war. The idea that of course there was Jews and Christians and Muslims did commune because they all lived cheek by jowl. There was kind of scholarly communication, but in Muslim lands, Christians and Jews were decisively subordinate. And in Christian lands, Jews and Muslims were decisively subordinate. And I think the attempt to imagine that this was some kind of paradise is wholly bogus.
Well, we can get into this.
The language of conquest I think is important because it reflects the brute realities of what we're going on.
Okay, we can get into this in more detail in a future podcast. It's great to find a subject on which I can pretend to be more progressive. So that is splendid. Let's get back to the anniversary. So the 2nd of January, 1492, the final war really in rolling up the Islamic kingdoms of southern Spain has been launched the previous April, and that's the Grenada War, the attack on the last emirate, the last Islamic emirate. And it's been launched obviously by Ferdinand and Isabella, the most Catholic monarchs as they are known. So Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, who are going to unite to create Spain. Grenada is isolated. It is friendless. Its allies have been defeated or have basically lost their nerve. So for what become the Spanish, it's actually a relatively easy job to kind of surround it and subdue it. The Grenadans issue appeals to the Ottomans, to North Africa, and so on. But basically, everybody ignores them because they know it's a kind of complete lost cause. Then there's a very strange it's almost like a kind of Brexit deal process. So in November 1491, the attackers agree a kind of truce with the defenders. And they sort of say, well, we'll pause while we discuss the details of the truce. And then the final deal is done in time for the 2nd of January. And that's the day that even now in Grenada, they celebrate it. They have marches and processions, and they have sort of this great fiesta, because this is the death knell of Muslim Spain and the moment that a kind of new Spain is born. So the guy who is in charge of Grenada, he's about in his early 30s, about 32, and his actual name is Abu Abdallah Muhammad XII. But he's known to Spanish chroniclers as Boabdil, sort of corruption of Abdallah. And Boabdil rides out with about 80 of his men on the 2nd of January to the camp on the banks of the River Genil, which is sort of facing the Alhambra, to Ferdinand of Aragon's camp. And there in this great sort of set piece
tableau, isn't it?
Scene, absolutely, kind
Clash of Civilizations tableau
by so many Spanish painters and so on. He hands over the keys to the city to Ferdinand, basically, and surrenders. And the great thing about this tableau, Tom, is that one of the people who is there and watching
Christopher Columbus
is a young Italian who's been pestering Ferdinand and Isabella to pay for his plans to go to India. And of course, it's Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
And later on, we have a letter that Christopher Columbus writes to Ferdinand and Isabella when he's sucking up to them. And he says, I remember seeing the royal banners of your highnesses planted by force of arms on the towers of the Alhambra. So, he's there watching this extraordinary landmark moment, which for a lot of people, I think you could say, is the end. It's one of those when do the Middle Ages end?
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those moments, the end of Islamic Spain, the moment that the balance, you could argue, that the balance between the West and Islam, for want of a better expression, begins to tip. Of course, you've got the high points of the Ottoman Empire to come. But from this point onwards, Spain is unified and created, and Spain is going to, of course, become the great superpower. So there's one more moment, which is the moment...
Is it his mum?
It is his mum.
His mum.
The moment that everybody remembers.
Stern.
So if you've ever been to Grenada, it's surrounded by mountains. The Albujarras, I think they're called. We once went on holiday up in the mountains, very windy roads. Anyway, so he's winding up into the mountains, into exile, because he's going to go to Morocco, to Fez, and spend the rest of his days in Fez. And the story goes, always told by Spanish kind of folklorists, that he stops at this kind of ridge and he looks back over at the Alhambra, the great pink stone walls in the dying sunlight, the sound of the
beautiful
fountains.
Buildings in the world.
Oh,
yeah.
Tremendous. This vision of Alhambra is created to be paradise.
And it is paradise. It is
absolutely
among the most beautiful buildings.
And he looks back and Boabdil, and he weeps. He sobs. And his mum, says to him,
I know.
Now you weep like a woman over what you could not defend as a man. I mean, imagine if your mum said that to you, you'd never recover.
No.
Would you? I mean, that would scar you for life. So that's called, his sigh. It's called the Moor's Last Sigh.
So as in the Salman Rushdie book.
Salman Rushdie book. And the pass, where he supposedly stops, it's called the Pass of the Moor's Sigh.
That's very romantic.
It's a very romantic story, but actually what then happens is pretty unromantic. So you get the sort of the forcible conversion of a lot of the Moors, the Moriscos.
Well, because actually the treaty is pretty generous.
It is.
So there's no forced conversion, and even Christians who've converted to Islam don't have to convert back.
But the Spanish soon renege on that.
They do,
and they start. There starts to be this series of kind of forced conversions.
So Moriscos,
expulsions,
they come to be
Moriscos, exactly. Confiscation of property and so on. A whole, one of the biggest, it goes on for ages. So one of the biggest waves of expulsions comes at the beginning of the 17th century. You're talking about a massive movement of people, refugee kind of crisis. So tens of thousands of people
and
going
it's not
to North
just
Africa.
Muslims, is it? Because so there are three kind of seismic events that happen in this year. So the fall of Grenada, Columbus's voyage across the Atlantic, and the expulsion of the Jews.
Exactly. So actually the fall of Grenada creates this momentum for a unified Christian Spain in which the Muslims and the Jews do not belong. And so you get the expulsion of the Jews, who, of course, tens of thousands of people who end up going to Italy, to Greece, to North Africa. And that's the origin of the kind of Sephardic Jewish branch. And
and it's a massive
diaspora.
exodus.
Yeah, colossal.
Huge.
Into places like, Smyrna, Thessaloniki, and so on. Alexandria.
And the Ottomans, of course, they, can't believe that the Spaniards are being so stupid.
Exactly.
Expelling all these, incredibly able and wealthy people. But it's to us, it seems, it's kind of the ultimate crime, isn't it? It seems a crime against a multicultural, harmonious future. But it exists in the context of apocalyptic yearning, I think. I think Ferdinand seriously sees himself as a figure who may be destined to bring in the second coming. He's very, very focused on the recapture of Jerusalem. And Columbus, likewise, is very, very motivated by this kind of idea that, the end of the world is drawing near. And people's motives exist in a context that to us seems very, very hard to get a grasp on, I think.
I think that's absolutely right. I read a book a year ago by a guy called Fernando Cervantes. I don't think he's related to the Cervantes.
The Cervantes.
He's a Mexican historian, and it's a book called Conquistadores. And it's a book about...
Oh, yes, that's wonderful.
What happens in the same year. So basically the arrival of the Spanish in the New World. And a lot of the, obviously a lot of the people who arrive in the New World have been in these campaigns. So they have been fighting against the Moors, and they are absolutely... One of the things that Cervantes really brings out in this book is he says, we traditionally see the Spanish arrival in the New World as motivated purely by plunder and greed and cynicism and all of these kinds of things. And the Christianity is merely a fig leaf for all that. And this obviously would appeal to you, Tom. He says, no, that's not right. The Christianity is not a fig leaf at all. It motivates everything, and you cannot understand them if you think of them as just as butchers and plunderers and robber barons.
Absolutely.
They see themselves as... So when they talk about, for example, when they talk about converting the Muslims in southern Spain, or when they talk about converting the Indians in Mexico and in Central America, this isn't just sort of cruel repression. They genuinely believe that they're saving these guys' souls.
Absolutely. Just as in the Islamic period, the Muslim conquerors impose on Christians and Jews templates of subordination that have been established in the Quran. The cycles of conquest and dominance and exploitation on both the Muslim and the Christian side are absolutely fueled, of course, by everybody wants to be on the top, but it is also massively fueled by very, very culturally determined ways of understanding how that dominance should be expressed. And I think that with the conquistadores, we did that wonderful episode with Camilla Townsend, talking about the Aztecs and Mexica, how they saw the world, and how the effort to understand how they understood things transforms your understanding of the process of the conquest. But I think exactly the same is true of the Conquistadores, and that's why I thought that book was so wonderful as well. I thought it's a kind of wonderful companion piece to Camilla Townsend's Fifth Son.
It is, actually. Well, what it does, I think, Tom, is that there's a kind of slightly bad habit, I think, an automatic kind of scholarly habit in the last 50 years or so, to say people believed this, but this was actually merely a this was the sort of a pretext, or what they really cared about. And generally, it's a kind of, or what they really cared about was money. Yeah. And that's true with almost everything. So people, with culture wars, people.
Well, I think
people don't really care about culture wars.
I mean, that is a kind of lingering aftershock of Marxism, isn't it?
It is exactly
that everything is to be determined, explained ultimately in material terms. But I think it's also it's a kind of a laying claim to a kind of sophistication that I've studied history so long that I've now penetrated to the dark motives that fuel how people have behaved.
There's a very petty example of this in the last few years in Britain, which is when people talk about Brexit and they say, well, people who voted for Brexit didn't really do it because they didn't want to leave the EU. They really did it because of racism, anti-austerity, blah, 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 blah. And this sort of, I've penetrated to the deeper motives that these people themselves don't even realise they have.
Yeah, well, also there's nobody voted for Brexit to make themselves poorer. Well, I think actually quite a lot of people did because,
well, anyway,
there are things that are more important than that.
Who knew the conversation about the conquest of the Alhambra could lead us to just a rambling conversation about Brexit?
But you will know that this has been the great theme. That's the great theme of Dominion, is that actually it's not just about material self-interest.
No. You're absolutely right. I agree with you.
That this stuff really, really matters.
Now, if you think you may have heard some of this from us before, you will be relieved, because in the second half, we are talking about somebody we've never mentioned on the podcast, and a part of the world I think we've never mentioned. We will be delving into the murky world of the Hawaiian monarchy. See you after the break.
This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money.
Tom, we often talk about how to organise our finances. I'm very conscious that I'm paying for a lot of mad subscriptions. And there's one thing that we've talked about often on this show. It's the thing that we probably hate more than any other, and it's a hidden fee. I would love to get my finances under control. There are all these things piling up on our bank statements, and I think I need to fix this problem. I need to sort this out and to stop this.
I mean, my finances are so chaotic that I need this app.
So I'll tell you what it is. It's called Rocket Money. It's a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending, and it helps to lower your bills so that you can grow your savings.
With Rocket Money, you can track all of your subscriptions, and you can easily cancel within the app with just a few taps, saving you time, avoiding charges. And you can also set budgets and goals and get personalized insights and regular reports to track how you're doing. They will even send you real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, refunds, and even low balances. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/ishistory.
That's rocketmoney.com/ishistory. rocketmoney.com/ishistory.
Welcome back to The Rest is History. I promised you the Hawaiian monarchy, and that's what you're going to get. Tom, this is not a subject I was expecting us to ever talk about on this podcast. No. Enlighten me.
No. Well, I'm going to put my hands up and say that this is not a subject that I really know anything about at all.
Well, that's a good start. Have you researched it closely?
Yes. Well, but it's a subject that I became interested in because of a drama series that I watched last year called White Lotus. Did you see it?
Brilliant series. Absolutely.
I thought
brilliant.
I thought it was the best satire on the way the West is at the moment that I've seen for a long time.
It was what was nice about, but I think you're almost underselling it, because that makes it sound quite political. And actually, one of the great things about it was that the politics was constantly being kind of undercut.
That's why it's a great satire.
Yeah.
I mean, but it was also great character studies. So essentially the plot is, it's set in a hotel, a luxury hotel. Appalling rich visitors arrive. There's the staff who are exploited. And of course, the dynamic is that the rich the white outsiders are exploitative. But it becomes more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant series. And lurking, a kind of thread running through it is the way in which native Hawaiian culture has been commodified, has been dissipated.
That's right.
Essentially, kind of exists to make money from rich
tourist attraction, basically.
Yeah. And I kind of watched it, and there's kind of an incredibly moving sequence where there are native Hawaiians who are in a long boat, and they're practicing. And one of the most miserable American characters in the series ends up becoming transfixed by this, and it's almost kind of redemptive in its quality. It's one of the few kind of, it's a visual kind of statement of hope, almost, of the sublime. And I watched it and realised I knew nothing at all about Hawaii, apart from the fact that Captain Cook died there. And that was basically the limit of my knowledge. Yeah. So I kind of just basically skim read a book on history on Hawaii. And I suppose because I'm British, I did find the British thread in Hawaiian history interesting, because, of course, the flag of Hawaii has the Union Jack on it. I think it's the only...
Oh, yeah, of course it does.
It's the only state flag in the United States that has a Union Jack. And that reflects that, Cook, who was the first European to discover them, although maybe the Spanish got there first, not for sure. Polynesian adventurers had got there in 10th, 11th, 12th centuries. Cook arrives. Predictably, it all turns horrible. The introduction of European arms, the introduction of European diseases has its customary devastating effects. All the chiefs of the various islands start fighting one another. There's a great kind of series of battles and clashes. And in 1795, all the various islands of the Hawaiian archipelago get united under a king. And I'm going to... Apologies to any Hawaiian listeners if there are any out there. I know I'm going to mispronounce this, but he's called Kamehameha. And he is commemorated
I'll take your word for it.
Kamehameha the Great. And he establishes a line of kings, all of whom take the name Kamehameha. So Kamehameha, the first, the second, the third, the fourth. And what happens over the 19th century is that Hawaii becomes increasingly kind of Anglo-Americanized. So there's both British and American influences. Yeah. And the intersection point of that is Protestant missionaries. So Hawaii becomes Protestantized very, very quickly. In 1840, it becomes officially a Christian monarchy. And Protestant missionaries kind of end up becoming key players in the politics of this Hawaiian kingdom. So they kind of marry into the local aristocracy, they have children, they become advisors and so on. And this integrates the Hawaiian monarchy into the kind of the broader world of European and American geopolitics. Yeah. So you have this king called Kamehameha the Fourth.
I knew he'd be Kamehameha.
So he's a very, very, very travelled man. When he's very young, before he becomes king, he's crown prince. He travels to France. He meets Louis Napoleon. He goes to England and he doesn't meet Queen Victoria because she's, I think, pregnant at the time and is retired, but meets Prince Albert, meets Lord Palmerston, and then goes to America, meets the President Taylor.
Yep.
And then he's going back on the train across America. And he goes into his private compartment because, of course, he's a king, so he has a wonderful compartment. And the conductor, seeing that he's not white, assumes that he's a servant who's strayed in there and shouldn't be there, and upbraids him and tries to throw him off the train. And Kamehameha is obviously furious at this. And this is, I think, a sentiment calculated to make every Englishman proud. This is the first time I have ever received such treatment, not in England or France or anywhere else. In England, an African can pay his fare and sit alongside Queen Victoria.
Oh, that's very heartwarming.
And the other heartwarming thing about Kamehameha?
He's a Wolves fan?
No, he's a big cricket fan.
Oh.
He's a huge cricket fan. So there's a kind of fascinating glimpse there of what Hawaii might have been.
A cricket-playing
part of the United Kingdom.
Like Guernsey.
Like Guernsey, exactly. Anyway, so what does this have to do with the 2nd of January? Well, it has to do with the birth of... The 2nd of January is the birth of King Kamehameha IV's wife, Queen Emma.
His wife is born on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's born on January the 2nd, 1836.
Yeah.
And her lineage is incredibly complicated, involving incredibly Hawaiian names that I do not really feel.
Talk us through it.
So her full name is Emma Kalanikaumaka Amano Kaleleonalani Nea Rook.
Well, your Hawaiian is beautiful.
And the rook is her stepfather.
Right.
So she's born to very distinguished Hawaiian aristocracy. There's then apparently it's the custom of the Hawaiian aristocracy that the children get adopted by step-parents, and she gets adopted by an aunt of hers who doesn't have a child, who's a chieftain in Hawaii, and is married to somebody, a missionary called Dr. Thomas C.B. Rook. And Dr. Thomas C.B. Rook is English. He came from Hertfordshire.
Right.
He studied at St. Bartholomew's Hospital and ends up marrying into the Hawaiian royal family. And he builds what every visitor to Hawaii says is the most English house outside England.
Wow.
It's the most English looking house.
I'm going to Google his house right now. What's his name? Thomas Rook.
Thomas Rook with an E. And so Emma grows up in this incredibly English house. And she marries the King of Hawaii.
Quite English. It's only quite English.
Well, that's its reputation.
Yeah.
Don't spoil it for people.
No. It's okay. It's very English.
It's a very English house.
It looks like a house from Stow on the Wold.
Exactly.
It doesn't, but I'll say that to please you, Tom.
And there are cricket nets for the king to practice his off breaks, and it's absolutely brilliant. She marries the King of Hawaii.
Yeah,
and they have a son who they call Albert.
Oh, very good.
Who's born in 1858. And do you know who Albert's godmother is?
Queen Victoria.
Yeah, Queen Victoria. Yep.
She agreed to do it.
Yeah, she did.
Oh, good for Queen Victoria. That railroad conductor in the US wouldn't have agreed, but Queen Victoria agreed.
And unfortunately, the son Albert dies in 1862, and her husband dies the following year.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have a kind of official state. She kind of remains a queen, but she's no longer regnant.
Yeah.
So she devotes her life to philanthropy. So she founds a hospital to help Hawaiians fight smallpox. She sponsors education. She's a great enthusiast for opera. So she sings in the chorus of a performance of La Traviata.
Golly, that's very impressive.
She's also a very devout Anglican.
Yep.
So she gets the Church of England to set up the Church of Hawaii as a kind of branch of the Church of England. 1862, she gets baptized into the Anglican Church. And then 1865 to 6, she follows in her dead husband's footsteps by going on a grand tour of America and Europe. And she gets to meet Victoria.
Oh, this is a nice moment.
Yeah, and they get on tremendously well. Victoria's very, very fond of her. She meets Napoleon III. She winters on the French Riviera. And then she comes back to Hawaii. And in 1874, there's an election for the king because there's a kind of problem of, there's not an obvious candidate. And Emma runs as one of the two candidates. And so she's the pro-British candidate. And her rival is the pro-American candidate.
Oh, dear. I don't like the way this is going, Tom.
Okay, so Emma is the people's choice.
Of course, people's princess.
The people back Emma. They want her to be the queen. But the Legislative Assembly, who've been bought by the Yankee dollar, back her rival.
This is a poor story.
So this American rival, whose name is Kalakaua, becomes king.
What an absolute villain.
He becomes king. Well, he's not actually. He's not a villain. He's a decent man, and he leaves a seat for her at every royal occasion. So it's left for her.
It's easy to be magnanimous though when you bought the election.
She keeps her title. She's known as the Old Queen.
She might not like that. I mean, that doesn't sound to me like he's a tremendous fellow at all. He seems like an absolute shit.
No, I think the Old Queen is a term of great affection and respect. And then she dies. But I think that's a kind of wonderful story.
So if she had won that election, do you think Hawaii would be British? Or would it be like the Falkland Islands or something?
I think it'd be a constitutional monarchy.
Yeah, because what happened to
the cricket-playing descendants of Queen Emma would be loyal members of the British Commonwealth, and it would all be tremendous.
You may not know the answer to this, Tom, but what happened to the Hawaiian monarchy?
Basically, British and American business interests, and chiefly American business interests, decided that the monarchy was getting in the way of what it wanted to do. kind of integrating it into the American economy, and so they toppled it.
Oh, that's very disappointing. So basically, toppled in the interests of capitalism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Swept away by
well, I mean, classic Marxist strategy.
Sad. Very sad.
Feudalism toppled. Hard-nosed capitalists move in.
Okay, well, that cues up very nicely tomorrow's choices. Because tomorrow I should be talking about a man who had a lot of time for monarchy and very little time for hard-nosed commercialism. And that man, Tom, is J.R.R. Tolkien.
Brilliant.
Very exciting. So we shall see you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Rest is History. For bonus episodes, early access, ad-free listening, and access to our chat community, please sign up at restishistorypod.com. That's restishistorypod.com.